Talking Bollocks podcast. TB or not TB? You decide.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Talking Bollocks. TB or not TB? You decide. Yes. So this is a sales podcast with a difference. Instead of talking to sales leaders and sales experts and sales gurus, not to say that the people we don't get on aren't good in their own right, but we're not plugging leaders or experts or gurus. I'm talking to everyday ordinary sales folk, just like me, just like you, out there in the coalface, battling it out with prospects, battling it with customers. And I want to hear about their failures and their screw-ups and things that they've done badly, because we can all relate to that, because that's how tough our job is. Who cares about success? Success is great, but let's talk about stuff we can all relate to. So today's guest is a wonderful gentleman by the name of Ian Baton. And I'm going to get Ian to introduce himself, tell you a little bit about who he works for, what he sells, and then we're going to get straight on with the show. So good afternoon, Ian. Thanks for coming along.
Hey, Benjamin. Yeah, great. And you know, yeah, you're right. I mean, we all see loads and loads of content out there of wonderful sales leaders and experts. I don't think there's any such a thing as an expert, incidentally. But my name is Ian Baton. I currently work for a business called B2BE. We're a global solution, software solution, engineering solution, supplying to the supply chain. But my role is in business development. I'm very much a hunter, very much on the coalface. Yeah, I guess warts and all today. I have had, I'm pleased to say, many successes across the years, but equally, quite a number of failures as well. So
probably more failures than successes, I suspect.
yeah, I guess so. So yeah, happy to be here.
Oh, that's good to have you, Ian. Right, so I go on with this first question because it's one of the answer is normally the same, and it's just nice to see a pattern. How did you get into sales? Because obviously this is, unless you're one of the few that wanted to do this as a child when asked at school, how is it you ended up doing this for a living?
Well, you know, actually, that's a wonderful question, because mine is possibly slightly different. But hey, here we go. So what happened was I was an internal estimator, actually, of all things, many years ago. So I was compiling costs and everything else, and I seen all these wonderful, flashy salespeople bouncing in and out of the office with this great suntan, a lovely suit, a wonderful company car. And I thought, I want to be one of these guys. But what I really enjoyed about my job was on the phone talking to clients, and I was building rapport, and I was pretty good at it as well. And I approached my then MD and said, hey, listen, I was 21 years of age, which in today's world is a comfortable age to go into sales, but back, I'm a little bit longer in the tooth. He said to me, Ian, you can't do it yet. You're just not old enough. And I said, oh, okay, interesting. So I'm the type of guy that if you say I can't do something, I will prove you wrong. So I found myself a job with another company, a little bit sort of further out of my where I lived. And the guy was a real sort of entrepreneur, loved salespeople, and just said, I'm not sure whether you're ready, but hey, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you the opportunity. I've got 10 accounts here, which we haven't done any business with for a couple of years. And your mission, should you wish to accept it, is you've got 6 months. And if you can convert 5 of them into buying customers, I'll extend your contract from 6 months to full term. And cut a long story short, that's what I did. I learned the hard way and made many mistakes along the way. Most people I went to see was like, who's this kid? You know, what is this kid doing in front of me? But I had to quickly learn how to gain the respect of reputable business people and learn how to sell to them. So that's how I got into sales.
Right. So you kind of chose it. Now, after a while, seeing these flashy guys with their orange skin and their slick suits and their nice cars, after a while, did you think, I don't want to look like one of those tossers? And maybe you've emerged to become a more human and less apprentice like us. But I don't know. Maybe
no, I didn't want to be one of them. But I just thought, you know, hey, you know, there's got to be something more here too. And look, to be honest with you, Benjamin, I wanted to see what coinage I can get, doing a different role to being an internal guy. But those early lessons stood me well throughout my career. Yeah.
So look, you're not a woman, so I can ask you this. You started at 21. How many years you been in sales now?
So I've been in sales nearly 30 years.
Nearly 30 years. Wow, that's a life sentence right there, isn't it? So, okay, well, this is good. We're going to come on to some screw ups. But how have you changed then in 30 years? How are you different from that 21-year-old punk that went in and started doing to 30 years on? There's a lot can happen in 30 years. So how are you different? What makes you?
Yeah. And I guess, yeah, you're right. So there was a lot of things which sort of helped me learn and what's the word like here? Get my craft honed to be, the what I am today. And I think some of the early mistakes, quite frankly, Benjamin, were that I'd look at a business and I'd think, okay, I can go and sell to this person. And the realization is that, yes, you can, but if there's a challenge in the purchasing process or the decision-making process, can this person actually sign off on the order? Are they a decision maker? So for me, I guess over the years, what I've learned is go to the top, but get to the point.
Yes, very good. It's a good lesson. It is. Too many salespeople spend their time kissing frogs and filling their pipeline with hope and great conversations with people that like well, but it goes nowhere. Yes. So that's a good tip to anyone. Okay, great. So can you think, you've probably had many, but can you think of your most toe-curling, cringing, awful experience in a sales role where you've just got in front of a decision maker and it has just gone completely Pete Tong, and you know it at the time, and it's just been embarrassing? Tell us this failure moment.
And I think it would have probably been in my earlier stages of my career. I mean, look, in sales, I think there's an important thing here, and that is I have a little prop. So here it is. I don't know whether everybody's going to see this on the podcast, but that's a chameleon, right? So that's a chameleon, and I think that in sales you have to be a chameleon to a degree. I'm going to caveat that by saying, even if you're sort of looking to your audience and tailoring your pitch to your audience, be yourself, because if you're not yourself, you'll fall down somewhere along the line, and that might be in the next stage of the negotiation where the true you has to come out. So if you're BSing and just being something that you're not, and going back to this earlier thing we made about the orangey salespeople in the flash suit and everything else, that isn't me. So I'm very much the guy who's the straightforward, straight talking, and you'll always get a straightforward approach. But I guess back to your point about the fuck up, so to speak, is really sort of one which I remember so vividly. I pitched into a company overseas, and I'd managed to get up to the C-suite, and I just started off the pitch by asking for us to all do introductions, and I kept referring to the top guy in the room, who was the decision maker, by the wrong name. So like I'm talking to you now, Benjamin, and I kept calling him David. And it just kept tripping me, and he let me continue to do it. And then we got so far into the pitch, and he just said, "Ian, by the way, my name's David." And it sounds like such a minor thing and not a major fuck up, but it really did sort of put me on the back foot and unease me for the rest of my sort of presentation. So and there's lots of other stories along the way. Like
yes,
I had an example where we delivered a project, we severely messed it up. I sort of stepped in fairly far down the line and spoke to my delivery team and said, "Oh my God, what are we doing here? What have you guys done here?" And I always support my internal teams because they're an integral part of the success of a salesperson. I said, just stop, just hit the brakes. Let's just stop the project, put it on ice. My CEO at the time said, Ian, this is costing us money every second that we're not working on this. This is costing us a shitload of money. And I said, okay, look, if we deliver this like this, it's going to be a monumental disaster. I went straight hot-footing it down the motorway into my client, straight into the founder of the business's offices, started to explain what had happened, and the guy just erupted. And I mean like off the scale. He was swearing at me. He was actually physically throwing things at me in his office. and I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa, hang on a second. And again, coming back to this be your true self. I wouldn't take that in the street. I wouldn't let my own father do that to me, So I just said, hey, listen, just take a breather, And he was still going. And I said, okay, look, enough. I said, that's it. I'm now leaving your office. I've come here to offer a solution. I've come here to be honest, put my hand in the air and say, we at the moment have fucked up, but this is how we're going to correct this problem, and this is what I'm going to propose, and it's not going to affect the project, and anything we do from this point in to put it right is at our expense. And he just came down like a hot air balloon, nice and slowly down, tempered down, to the point of we sat, he appreciated my honesty, my transparency, and then we actually went for a few drinks afterwards, and I got him pissed, and he was a happy boy. But yeah, I mean, a couple of examples there. One's not so sort of dramatic, but one that's sort of a little bit more in the scale there of points in the sales process where it's gone horribly wrong. But I think the lesson learned, Benjamin, was just put your hand up. It's like anything in life. If somebody's lying to you or deceiving or just not being transparent and honest, and they're trying to cover something up, eventually it gets found out. And when it's found out, it's much worse than taking a step back and just saying, hey, we're at this stage, it's a mess, we're going to put it right.
Well, I completely agree. One of the things I teach all my people is you go vulnerable. If you've made a mistake or you've screwed up, it's best to admit it before the prospective customer can bring it up, because then you take away their thunder. If you blow up or pull the pin on the grenade and blow it up before they can, you control the explosion, and therefore you can control the fallout. But if you wait for it to happen or cross your fingers and hope, as somebody sells with hope something won't come up or be mentioned, then you're just leaving yourself open to be damaged. So that's great. Okay, then, so let's go on to, obviously, you've had a 30-year career in sales. So you've probably had a variety of jobs with a variety of organizations.
Yeah.
Without mentioning any names, obviously, because I don't earn enough to hire the lawyer's mission de re to defend against the libel that could come. Can you think of the worst employer or the worst manager, or maybe both combined? What were they like? Why were they so awful? And just share a story, because this is something most folk can relate to. As a crap.
And I think, look, you're right. I'm not gonna be naming any names and naming any organisations. I have worked for a number of companies over my sales career, and it's been an interesting journey, and we can all sort of applaud the leaders that we sort of so respect and have gained so much from. But I think perhaps a story that'll resonate with a lot is where I've worked for organizations where there's almost been a narcissist at the top of the sales leadership. A guy who is micromanaging everything that you do, whether it be the number of calls that you make in a day in my earlier career, right down to pulling apart your pipeline, sitting with you on client calls and interrupting and making points that aren't really relevant. So somebody who's not necessarily a sales guy, but likes to wear all the hats in the organization and then sort of is disruptive in the sales process. And I found, when I've worked for a couple of individuals like that and a couple of organizations like that, it just really doesn't wash it, and it causes unnecessary angst and pain for you as a sales professional, because let's talk about sales calls, for example. If you're targeted, and this was in my earlier career, but if you're targeted with, say, making, I don't know, let's be realistic, 30, 40 calls a day. I'm not a massive fan of that, Benjamin. I'm really not, because to me, right now in my career, I can make 5 or 6 high quality calls, which will lead to next stage meetings. Yeah. If I'm tasked with making, when I look back, 30, 40 calls, I'm just ticking a box. Yeah. I'm just making the call to just tick a box, you know. And if I'm in a CRM that's logging that call, I can literally connect with the voicemail, leave it. My voicemails are very effective, but I can just tick a box to say, yeah, called, left voicemail, you know, called, didn't connect, tick, called, wrong number, tick, you know. And before you know it, you've logged 10, 15 calls in a matter of minutes. And I'm not a fan of that. And again, you know, this oppressive management style, I don't think it works in today's environment. I'd like to take your view on that, you know.
Well, no, 2 points on that. First of all, I completely agree. When I work with a company, you often go in and they measure talk time or they measure number of dials. And I go in and say, well, those are stupid metrics. Why are you measuring things that have actual no value? What you want to measure is the number of conversations with decision makers that they're having. Once you figure out how many of those on average they need to get an appointment, then you can work out this is how many people a day you need to talk to. That could take 5 dials, 50 dials. It doesn't matter how many it takes. Just have those conversations at that level. If you do that every day, 5 days a week, we know you'll hit target. So yeah, measure what matters, what you control. And you are right, human beings will always hit a target if given one. And if you tell me I'm going to make 100 dials, I'm going to be finding out what the time is quite a lot. Aren't I? You know, the number of people that phone the talking clock or they phone some other automated system just to log that dial up. It's also the same with, I've worked with companies that recorded talk time. They must be on the phone for at least 3 hours a day talking. I go, you know, that encourages them to talk longer to people that are of no use.
Yeah.
Because that's all you're going to do is drag out a conversation to hit that target. So it all changes to it's decision maker level conversations per day. That's what we're interested in. So I agree with that. Why do you think so many salesmen, because most people don't quit jobs because it's usually not because of the money. We know the main reason is they're not satisfied. They don't feel valued. They don't feel appreciated. We know that's the main reason. So why are so many sales managers so bloody awful? What is it? How do these people get there? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I had my own will, but why so many poor men?
I think it's really interesting. I worked for an organization once, and we had a bunch of rookies come into sort of BDR roles, and one of the guys there who's turned out to be an absolute superstar, and I still keep in touch with him, and we won't mention any names, but he had a manager at the time of joining the organization who was this oppressive, you know, this is it, it's matrix, it's this, and this guy, I've seen his head drop after about a week. And I just passed him in the corridor and I said, hey buddy, what's the matter? And he said, I'm going to quit. And I said, why? I said, I thought you really wanted to get into sales and sort of, you know, make a future career of this. And he said, well, you know, this is just not me. We sat down, we had a chat, and I said, well, what's the challenge? He said, I've got to make 50 dials a day. And I said, well, yeah, I know that's on your matrix sort of thing, but what do you want? What do you want? And he sort of, you know, and he'd been given a script and, you know, all of this stuff that I absolutely, well, it just doesn't cut the mustard with me at all. And as you rightly say, Benjamin, you know, looking at ticking boxes. So we sat down and I just put a headset on with him and I just listened to his calls. And after listening to about 10, 15 calls, I just said, okay, let's stop now. I said, do you want me to tell you what to say, or would it be easier if you just listen to me? And he said, he took the easy option, right? He said, let me just listen to you. So we did a couple of calls, and I managed to hook a couple of people in meetings just like that. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but it's just because I've been doing it up quite some time. And I said, just try that. He said, "Oh, I don't know whether I'm comfortable." I said, "God, just go with it." I said, "Just go with it. Just." And his manager backed off when they realized that this guy was suddenly not just booking meetings, he was booking revenue, he was securing deals, and blah, 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 blah. And I later had a very frank, candid conversation with this sales manager and said, "Listen, you got a team of 20 people here. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job, but do you think that, this one individual that just spent a little bit of time with me, this is what we did, this is what we crafted, this is what we changed. If you scaled that across your team of 20, would that make a significant outcome change to what you're trying to achieve here?" And I just got this sort of blank look, as if to say, "How dare you?" We're all about 40 dials a day, and I just, in all honesty, I don't know the answer to your question. I think a lot of sales leaders have got there for the wrong reasons, and that they really need to take a step back. And when you asked me the question earlier about the worst sales leaders I've worked with, some of the best sales leaders I've worked with have given me the trust, the confidence to do what I'm doing, applaud my successes. And when I do fail, rather than bollocking me or tearing me apart, they've sort of taken time to understand where it's fell apart, literally sort of dissect the whole process with me, and then sort of step in and say, "Okay," and almost like walk you through a sort of positive analysis to help you realize, yes, I see it now. Let's not do that again, because we all know the route to insanity is just doing the same thing again. So taking the time to just pull it apart and just in a nice way, in a constructive way, to help you improve the next time around, rather than rah, 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 you got this wrong, and you just walk away with your head spinning thinking, "Shit, I'm crap."
No, I agree. I think a lot of sales managers are people that did relatively well in sales, and what happened is they see management as a promotion. You see, because remember, most people in sales don't want to be there. So when an opportunity to leave comes along, they take it, right? So you've done well, and I think, well, you're good. You've led the leaderboard for some time. Would you like to be a manager? Oh yeah, it comes with all the kudos that comes with it. But managing people and being a salesman are two different skill sets. So what you end up doing is losing a good salesman and getting a crap manager. And a lot of good salespeople, and I used to be one of them, if you'd ask them, "Why are you any good?" the honest answer was, "I don't know." Now, if you don't know why you're good, it's very hard to teach people. And so whenever I get into an organization and they show me what they do, and I simply say, "Well, why do you do it like that?" Go, "Well, that's the way we've always done it." "No, I know that, but why?" And they don't know. And so, well, if you don't know why you're doing something, why are you doing it? "Well, we know it works." I get the outcome is what you want, but why? If we knew why, and then we could break it down, we could pass that on. And that, I think, is one of the biggest problems most managers have. They don't have the ability to pass on why they're good at what they do. And they become frustrated with people. They just do it like this. It worked for me. I've done this for 20 years. Yeah, just do it this way. And it's, but why does it work? It doesn't matter. It works. Just do it. And that's not teaching someone.
No, it isn't.
All right, great. A couple more questions. So what do you think makes a good salesman? From your experience of being one and meeting salespeople throughout your entire 30 years of sales, what do you think from your experience makes a good one? What is it that they do that makes them good?
I think you've got to be confident without being arrogant. They're two very different things. And here's a great book. So I sell primarily to C-suite executives. So I sell at senior level. But for anybody who's out there who's a rookie or who's even a BDR, SDR working for a reputable organization, and their remit is get me appointments with decision makers, senior decision makers. You've got to earn the trust. You've got to earn the right to be in front of these senior decision makers. And imagine for a second, put yourself in their shoes and just think to yourself, what are these guys coming across every day? Probably several hundred emails, probably 50 calls, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 meetings, probably 100 phone calls, probably 100 emails, probably 100 phone cal probably several hundred pitch calls, social media, blah, 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 blah. So here's a great book. This is called Selling to Veto.
So, yes, I know the book.
Yeah, it's by an author called Anthony Parinello. And it's really sort of, I think I actually quoted this earlier, get to the top, get to the point, get to the sale. And let me just caveat that slightly. You mustn't, in answer to your question, to be great in sales, I think you've got to be good at listening, essentially, but also asking a ton of questions. You said yourself there, Benjamin, when you're going into organizations, why do you do this? Because it works. Yeah, but why?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a direct guy, yeah, but there's lots of ways that you can dance around the fire to open up and challenge the customer.
Yeah.
And if you're confident enough to challenge them, you'll unearth really getting to where their pain points are. That is the essential part that I find has resulted in my success. Understanding what the real challenges of the business are, why they're lagging behind their competitors, and if you've got a solution that can help address that gap, then that's where your sweet point is. Also, being again back to the point I made very much earlier in this podcast, be transparent and be honest. So if you're trying to sell a round solution for a square peg, and you know it's just not going to fit, just say it.
I agree. And to touch on that, I think in my experience, the best salespeople are, as you pointed out, they challenge the most. You see, if you're in front of a CEO or an MD or someone at C-suite, you have to be able to carry your own, and you have to be able to make them think differently. Because if they don't think differently, then why would I give you a load of money or my time to be around you? You've got to make me realize, I hadn't thought of that. No one's asked me that. I've never been challenged on that before. I've never considered it like that. And then as they're doing that, they start to think, I think this guy may have something.
Yeah.
But the problem with most salespeople is they're subservient. They're so grateful to have got in front of someone in authority that they're reduced to some 5-year-old kid who's trying to be liked and pleased, and they don't want to upset the apple cart. So you're quite right. It's all about challenging and being assertive, not aggressive.
Being assertive, not aggressive.
Fine line.
Being assertive, not aggressive. Confident, not arrogant.
Yeah.
And selling, not telling. If you're familiar with that phrase, and it's a massive thing. And for those out there that aren't familiar with that phrase, what it means is, a lot of, and I've seen so many, even established salespeople go into a meeting and they're just not asking that discovery phase, that understanding, getting to the bottom, to the challenge, really, really unearthing and being that person, like you say, Benjamin, that is able to challenge the status quo of what's happening in this business. And a lot of people, they see the fairy lights. They're in front of the CEO of a big global company and they're like, I got here, this is it, I've done my job. Well, actually, no, that's where you're just starting your journey. And if you're the same as the other 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 or dozen sales guys that have gone in before, you're not resonating, you're not standing out, you're not being the one who's going to sort of make that CEO or that C-suite executive think, now this is a guy that actually we respect each other.
Exactly. If you go in and behave like everybody else, the only thing they can judge you on, therefore, is price and likability.
Yeah.
2 things that salespeople say is the number one reason they don't win business. It's either the price or they didn't like us. Actually, the reality is, if you want to be treated differently, then you have to act differently. Stop acting like a sycophant and stop trying to suck up. Go in there and say, hey, look, Mr. CEO, whilst I appreciate you're a big ball breaker and you run a successful business, if you've got a problem I can fix, then you better let me do my job. And that's ask you the questions that you probably shouldn't know the answer to, because if you don't know them, I don't even know why I'm here anyway. Yeah. So very good. All right, last question and I'll let you go. Top tip then, if you were talking to your 21-year-old self with your 30 years of wisdom to speed up, to accelerate your ability to be better at sales quicker, what would you tell them?
Look around you in your organization. And I think that very much selling is a little bit like being in a football team. I love football. Okay, here's my team, Leicester City. Leicester City
Leicester
FC.
City.
There we go.
There's a plug here.
But I think selling is a little bit like being in a football team. Difference being that you know you're often part of a team, but you've got your standout players. You've got your Jamie Vardys, you've got your Iheanachos, you've got your James Maddison. Obviously, I'm quoting Leicester City players, nobody else, right? So, but I think my top tip is if you're coming in as a rookie or as a base level, look around you and see who's successful, who's really consistently at the top of that leaderboard, whether it be in revenue recognition, you know, whatever it might be, or ticking all the boxes. Who's the number one person? And then go and spend some time with them. Go and spend some time with them and listen to them. Ask them actually if you can sit on a call with them, if you can go to a client meeting, if your organization will be you know comfortable with you doing this. And don't say a word. Just listen, observe, take it all in. And then when you come out of those meetings, just don't be afraid. Ask that leader, ask that top salesperson, say, if you don't understand, just say, what did you just do? And why, going back to your why, why did you do it?
Yeah.
And that's my top tip. Seriously, seriously, it is.
No, it's a very good tip. All right, folks. Well, for all of those watching at home, this is Talking Bollocks. TB or not TB, you decide. Like I said, we don't interview experts or anyone who claims to be a leader. We just introduce ordinary sales folk, the sort of people that you work with and will employ. So whether you agree with anything that Ian said or you don't, it's not the point. It's the fact that ordinary salespeople hold these views and opinions, and these are the people that are out there every day. So maybe you should listen to more of them and spend less time on motivational tapes. So to all of those that have been watching, thank you. Ian, if anyone wants to get a hold of you or find you, where do they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. Yeah, it's probably the best place, probably your best protocol. All of my personal details are on there, my mobile phone, my email address. Just drop me a note, and anybody who wants to ask me any further questions away from this, you know, happy to help. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, Benjamin. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ian. All right, everybody. Well, that's it. I'm Benjamin, the UK's most hated sales trainer, and this has been another episode of Talking Bollocks. See you all soon.